Welcome back, everyone. I'm joined by the assistant sports editor for the Telegram and Gazette and Home Team Magazine, Jim Wilson, as always. Willie, playoff time, hard to believe, but here it is.
Here.
Week 8, we're talking playoffs, new system. First of all, what kind of feedback are you getting from the coaching ranks out there?
You're just trying to beat me already.
I'm not. I'm staying neutral. I'm remaining neutral today.
This is a nice Kevin Shea right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, wait, we'll talk again in 2 weeks when you're throwing chairs.
Yeah, that's true. But it is the system that's in place, and everyone has to play with it. Obviously, coaches that didn't make it, you're going to have teams that didn't make the playoffs that now don't like the system, and maybe they didn't like it before, maybe not. And some teams, most teams that are in the playoffs will be saying, okay, well, let's see how it plays out.
Right. You're getting a lot of those schools that came into the year saying, you know what, let's try it, let's see what happens.
Right.
They're starting to see that, geez, maybe this isn't a good thing. Maybe it's a lot of trepidation right now, a lot of wait and see stuff. I think after the season, you'll see a lot of, let's go back to the drawing board with this. I think immediately the first thing that jumps is 8 teams. They're saying, at the beginning it was like, well, it's like soccer. We'll have a lot of teams, you get the chance to be in the playoffs. And celebrate that. Now it's like, geez, Westboro 1-6. Look at that. Worcester Tech 4-3. They're on the outside looking in. They're seeing all these other teams that made it, and now you get Leominster, Westboro, and I don't want to pick on Westboro, but that's a daunting task to get on that bus and drive up to Doyle on a Friday night. Ask your fans to come up there and pay $7 and $5 for a ticket. And then is it a JV game in the second half?
Right, against one of the best teams in the state.
Arguably,
Leominster is one of the best teams in the state, so it doesn't, like you said, it's not a knock on Westboro at all. And maybe they extend it 1 week, and that's probably what will happen, is maybe the regular season gets extended 1 more week next year, and you have the Final Four, and you go with it that way.
Leominster Neshoba is a lot more interesting of a game. You get that Final Four early. Marlboro St. John's rematch right off the bat.
Right.
I mean, those are some interesting games to get a week later. I'm not saying upsets can't happen, because Shrewsbury could very well knock off Neshoba. We'll probably talk about that in a couple minutes. But it's one of those things where would an extra home game, would an extra week of regular season help a lot of these teams out, make them think that's who knows, maybe you get hot in the second half of the season, you use that extra week, you springboard into the playoffs. It could benefit a lot of teams. It's something for them to look at. And I know from talking to guys like Jay Costa, they're definitely willing to listen to the complaints and concerns of teams. This first year was supposed to be a horror. Let's see what happens, work the bugs out as it goes along. And next year, maybe they hit the ground running, maybe they fix a lot of these concerns.
Well, you bring up a good point, and that's the thing, is that they've said all along, we just wanted to get this passed so we could have a framework in place. And it's not in concrete. It'll be worked. It'll be worked at the end of this year. It may be worked at the end of next year. And they're going to try to find something that is amenable to everyone across the board. What it'll be tough for is these teams that are out of the playoffs, the teams that didn't make it. You have 4 weeks now. You have a month of football left that you're playing
for pride.
Games that are just for pride, that you've been told you're out. It's one thing when you're playing week 9, 10, 11, and you have 2 wins, and you know that you're probably, you're not going to make the playoffs, you're out of it, but you haven't been officially told you're eliminated.
It's a different thing.
And now you've been officially eliminated. But let's move forward. Let's look at the playoffs. Look at some of the games. Westboro Leominster, you talked about that. I mean, it's a Herculean task. It's 1980 Olympic team if Westboro can win it. Dan Orlando, probably going to be his final game as a high school football player. What a competitor. What a great football player. We had him in the Quabbin game. The guy never takes a snap off. Offense, defense, special teams, he never comes off the field. You can't say enough about what a great leader and a great high school football player Dan Orlando is.
He's a great, like you said, for all those reasons, him and his brothers have been part of the Westboro history for years now. I can't remember the last time there wasn't an Orlando in Westboro.
Right.
And each of them has been committed, and they're the heart and soul of the teams they're on. I think that's, it's been fun watching them play. Westboro, we've said it all year long, it's, they're a better team than what their record indicates. Fortunately, against Leominster, you might be asking them to do too much, because I've tried to justify every week that Leominster plays, and this is not a knock on Leominster, but it's like, well, maybe Shrewsbury can slow them down. If they get that offense off the field, maybe Doherty, they match up so well skill-wise, and Leominster just smokes them. And it's like, it's just Neil O'Connor and Addo and Mason Williams. It's just such a machine, and Dave Ply's done a great job with that program, and I think that's just. It's a tough task, and they're the team to beat in Division II.
Now, one of the other games, North Middlesex at St. John's, what I've seen recently is Drew Smiley running the ball a lot more. And what you can do there is when you're spreading guys out, 4 and 5 wide receivers, now the defensive backs and linebackers a lot of times have their back to the line of scrimmage initially when they're dropping into coverage. Drew Smiley takes off. He had 2 huge, long touchdown runs against Marlboro in that second half comeback a week ago. St. John's was down 20-7 at the half. They come back and win. Smiley, when they take the chains off him, unleash him, let him run, He is he may be the best all-around football player in Central Mass.
And that was great to see for St. John's perspective, because they were able to go, just get annihilated in the first half and then correct all those problems. Something they haven't done in the past. Usually it's, playing on he has a lot of slings and arrows on that defense last couple of years. I think that was a great win for them. And, and they did the same thing against Wachusett. When they got down, it was sort of a rock fight at the beginning of the game.
Right.
They were able to, like I said, unleash Smiley, fix some things on offense, get that train rolling. And I think that's going to be helpful, especially going into the playoffs, because it's not going to be an easy game for them after this.
Fitchburg at Marlboro, Kelleher Field. Good to get a home game for Marlboro, especially coming off that emotionally tough loss to St. John's. Sean Mahoney's going to have his team ready. He's
going to be ready, and they know it's going into Fitchburg, against Fitchburg rather. It's a tough game. They can't take any plays off. Marlboro's one of those teams that came in the beginning of the year. They're young. You don't know who. Let's move this guy quarterback, move him into wide receiver. They were sort of playing with a lot of things. Things have started clicking for them, and obviously they're undefeated until St. John's. The game they were up at half, and so even though it's a loss for them, they look at it and say it's a winnable game. They meet them again, and it could be a different story because they know what to expect. They know they can contain them for a half. They can do it for two. It's a different story.
I think the most interesting matchup, and you alluded to it earlier, is Shrewsbury-Neshoba in Division II. They were tied in the point system. Neshoba, their long streak, the winning streak ends this year, so they know they're human. They know that they have to play 4 quarters of football. Shrewsbury, meanwhile, healthy, a little healthier than they were when they played Neshoba the first time around, with McVane back and having him back for a few weeks. So now everyone kind of knows their role.
Exactly. I think that giving Shrewsbury a second crack at Neshoba is going to be big for them. Like you said, they're a different team. They're healthy. Last couple weeks I've been high on Shrewsbury because they're not the team that started the season. You can see them sort of creaking and trying to fit the right parts in. They were able to fix a lot of things. Even in their losses, they're looking good. So I think they can give them the show, but it's not going to be the same team they're facing.
Right.
I mean, I think that's going to be Shrewsbury going to come in seeing what went wrong in that Neshoba game, why they get the loss, looking who was there now that wasn't there before, how they can utilize that player, and they should give them Neshoba a good bat.
Looking at Division IV now, Nipmuc, Shepherd Hill. Shepherd Hill, it's all about the pit crew. The linemen up front, they control and have controlled every game that they've played so far.
And that's, I don't think they're worried too much about Nipmuc because I know they can control a line of scrimmage. They can get, Kyle Braille, contain him, and that goes a long way to stop at Nipmuc. And they're looking at it, they're saying they don't want to be the one seed that sort of falls apart, and gets, because you barely beat St. Peter Mary, you barely won this game. They're going to come in knocking heads. I think they're going to really assert themselves because they're in the toughest division head to toe in Central Mass. That Division IV is just brutal.
Groton Dunstable at Hudson. Hudson undefeated, but very banged up.
Right.
This could be an upset. Groton Dunstable could pull the upset in this one because this is a different Hudson team than you saw 2 or 3 weeks ago.
But I thought Hudson was banged up. Their quarterback, Mendez has been banged up. His shoulders are hurting him. They lost Bothwell for the season with a broken ankle. It's a tough game because Hudson's a really good team. I've called them one of the favorites all year. So it kind of stinks for them to have the limp towards the playoffs. These important games, missing some key cogs. Groton Dunstable, the same thing. Their quarterback's banged up. They lost their quarterback from last year to Hawaii. So I think that was a lot of adjustment for them. I think Groton looks at this as a winnable game, but Hudson, remember, they looked really good last week. Their third-string quarterback comes in and they don't miss a beat.
Right.
And so they beat up on North Middlesex. I think that's a great win for them. They're ready for the playoffs. They like being the under-the-radar team, and everybody's counting them out. And like I said, the toughest division. They come out and they got a couple of big wins, and all of a sudden people are talking about Hudson again.
Quabbin and Doherty, and again, the elements may play a factor in this one. Quabbin obviously wants to throw. Right. Doherty can pass and throw. They can play either game. But interesting matchup to see the wide receivers on either team matching up against the defensive backs because most of the guys are playing both ways. Most of the guys that are playing wide receiver are also playing defensive back. So to see, Doherty has a height advantage, but both teams have some excellent wide receivers and defensive backs.
Right, it heads up to Quabbin. Mulcahy's had that hose on the field all week. He's not waiting for the rain. He's Bull Durhaming this game.
Yeah. Just because, Kevin Costner.
Exactly. He does something. The ice capades are on. They're all, it's going to be a great game for them because they want to slow Quabbin down. They know they match up well offensively with Thide and Coppolino and Kierman. Yeah. They're just monsters. They're like they're playing Madden out there with that offense sometimes. But I think Doherty looks at we have weapons of their own.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Darkwa, Yadam, 6'3", 6'4".
I gave St. Peter Mary the home field advantage last week, and how did that work out for me? I mean, Doherty came in, beat a very good team. And they looked at it, everybody's looking at them and saying, North and South, they beat the city teams. What did that show them? They're still a very good team. People are looking at, I don't think anybody's forgotten about Doherty. They're still really good. Still, Brennan's one of the best quarterbacks around.
They were up on Leominster at the half.
Up on Leominster at the half. I mean, I
think that's the only time this year that Leominster was trailing at the half.
That's correct, and they know it. They're a very good team. They give a lot of teams headaches. I think they're going to, if they know they can come out and punch Quabbin in the mouth, it's going to be a nice game for them.
Tantasco at St. Peter Marion. These teams played 3 weeks ago. St. Peter's won that game, but Tantasco gets their quarterback back, Zach Edwards. And meanwhile, St. Peter's gets Noah Burke back, one of their great two-way players.
Exactly. I think St. Tantasco was looking forward to this game. I talked to Tom Henriksen a couple weeks ago after this game. He said Tantasco was the hardest hitting team they faced all year. And looking at St. Peter Marion's schedule, that's a huge compliment to the Warriors. They like to fly under the radar. Let Shepherd Hill, let St. Peter Marion take the accolades in Division 4, but they know coming in, they know this is a winnable game for them. They look at it, like you said, they didn't have their quarterback last time. They know they can go toe-to-toe. They can fix a couple of things. They can walk out off the field with a win. I think that's what they're looking to do.
All right, we're going to pick a couple teams from Division 5 and 6, the speed round, if you will. Gardner and Northbridge in Division 5.
They never played each other. That's one of the things I was surprised about this. In all the history of these two teams, they never played each other in a game before. Dubzinski versus La Chapelle should be a great matchup. I'm curious to see how Gardner's power running game with Peter Gallant comes up against Tommy Tabor and that offensive defensive line they have. That's where this game is going to be one of the trenches.
Maynard and Blackstone Valley Tech in Division 6. Maynard started the year very hot. Blackstone has been hot from start to finish. Unbeaten, untied, and unbelievable. Archie's got the Beavers playing great football again.
Exactly. You know they went, and they've been waiting for this for weeks. I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week. They've been playing that Cal Conference. They've dominated the Tool Belt League. This is their chance. You remember last year they won a Super Bowl and they beat the teams like West Boylston and Littleton. They come out of their element and they still strive. This is their chance to show we can dominate because everybody's saying why are you giving them points. You jumped off the bandwagon a couple weeks ago. I'm still riding the Beavers, and I think they're gonna dominate people. They're gonna show they belong. They're one of my favorite. Them and Littleton and West Boylston. That's a tough division.
It is. Division 5. Auburn is your 5-time defending Super Bowl champs. Couple losses this year. We're not used to seeing that from the Rockets. They have Bartlett to open things up. How do you see that one going?
It should be nice because I think a lot of people look at Auburn. They graduated so many people from last year. It took them a while. They're not killing people, so everybody's like, oh, Auburn's not the same anymore. Just wait. That coaching staff has had 7 weeks now to build these kids up. I'm not quite saying the bad boys are back yet, but they're getting there. They're in the neighborhood.
They're starting to sing the song.
And this is what happens. The playoff time, don't count them out because they've been there before. They've been there before.
Right.
They know what the deal is. They're going to amp it up in these playoff times. They could be the team to beat in Division 5.
And it could be a rematch with Leicester. Who knows?
Griff
doesn't know what he's going to get. Little Jekyll and Hyde. All right, we're out of time again. Next week we will be talking about the second round of the playoffs, the Final Four. He's Jim Wilson. We'll be back with more of the Frenzy Extra right after this.